Hi, I'm Kim Trainor. I'm the author of two books of poetry. The first one called Karyotype, which was published by Brick Books in 2015, and Ledi, which was published by Book Hug in 2018. Today, I'm going to read to you from a work in progress, which is grappling with resilience and climate change. I'll read to you from the first section called Wildfire, which is about the fire seasons we've been experiencing here in BC. And then I'm going to show you a short film I've been working on from a sequence called Seeds, which is the second section of the book, which thinks about serotiny, that some seeds require fire or heat in order to be regenerated, and also thinks about resilience. So the first poem is from the first section of the book, and it's called Wildfire. The wildfires have been burning some weeks now, and even here at noon, the light is sci-fi, burnt ochre, umber. The radio reports evacuations, but none near you, where you've been working long days in the West Kettle and Similkameen. Well, I have been carrying on without you. You call each night from a payphone in the Kootenays. I cup your flickering voice to my ear. Crickets, the zip of a tent, B minor sharps and blues rasp of white noise. You've become so thin. If I breathe too hard, you are extinguished. Don't leave me. Come closer in tympanum, love. Come deeper, call clear, sheltered in my hearing. And the short film that I'm going to show you is called tardigrade. Tardigrades are these amazingly cool little tiny microscopic creatures that live in moss and can survive almost anything, including the vastness of space, lack of atmospheric pressure, extreme temperatures of heat or cold. And they just go into a tune state where they hibernate and then they wake up again when the conditions are better. The soundtrack for this piece was done by my colleague Hazel Fairbairn, and I did the collage and voicing. Analog 1. These instructions contain 4 analog entries comprised of this set of instructions, the first 3 verses of Genesis, a human child's line drawing of a stick figure, a primer to a fraction of the Earth's 7,111 languages, followed by a brief statement on existential threats and archival cultures, which has been handwritten in a small notebook, then translated into binary code and printed by lasers, followed by haiku. This poem can be read by the naked eye. Analog 2. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim va'et ha'aretz. V'ha'aretz hayata tohu v'vohu v'choshech al pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. Vayomer Elohim yihi or vayehi or. Brief statement on existential threats and archival cultures, written in a small notebook and then translated into digital code and printed by lasers. First, there were handprints outlined in reverse by mixing a paste of red ochre and spit and blowing this through a hollowed-out bone. Then stitched leather pouches to hold seeds, etc., then scrolls, pyramids, and codices. These have all lasted millennia and were analog before it was cool to be analog. Then came microfiche on plastic sheets that will probably degrade or melt in about 100 years, or in the event of a catastrophic event. In the meantime, along came digital formats, zeros and ones, punched into IBM cards by female key punchers like my mother circa 1974. Then microchips and thumb drives. Information coded in synthetic DNA or grafted onto the DNA of living plants, such as Nicotiana benthamiana, common tobacco, that can, in theory, grow whole libraries from seeds. Imagine walking through a park that is actually a library, every plant, flower, and shrub full of archived information. Then back to analog again, with optical nanolithography, letters the size of a bacillus bacterium etched onto glass, and then filigreed with atoms of nickel. Layers and layers of this stuck together with epoxy resin, holding the DNA and hair follicles of a venture capitalist, as well as a pinch of tardigrades, who also, in their dormant state, have their cells replaced by a protein that resembles glass. And all of this shot to the moon on the Beresheet rocket, which crashed 11th April 2019. Probably the tardigrades survived. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Gary Geddes. It's a real pleasure to be part of Turnstone's 45th anniversary celebrations. I'm going to share two poems, one from each of the books they published. The first is from the Acid Test, published in 1980. I have to confess it's one of my favorites, no doubt because it received more attention than it deserved. Sandra Lee Scheuer is a poem about the killings at Kent State University during the Vietnam War, when the Ohio National Guard opened fire on unarmed students protesting on May 4th, 1970. They killed 4 students, wounded 9 others. Sandra Lee was one of those killed. I was a graduate student at the time protesting the U.S. war outside the American consulate. I was shocked at the news and spent several years trying to put my feelings into poetic form, but only managed to produce angry diatribes against American foreign policy. They were spirited diatribes, but too mediocre to publish. Then I discovered a book by the American journalist I.F. Stone called The Killings at Kent State, which included 4 details about Sandra Lee that enabled me to write the poem. She was a speech therapy student, she was tidy, she loved to roller skate, and she was not political. You might have met her on a Saturday night, cutting precise circles clockwise at the Moonglow roller rink, or walking with quick step between the campus and a green 2-story house, where the room was always tidy, the bed made, the books in confraternity on the shelves. She did not throw stones, major in philosophy, or set fire to buildings, though acquaintances say she hated war, had heard of Cambodia. In truth, she wore a modicum of makeup, a brassiere, and could no doubt more easily have married a guardsman than cursed or put a flower in his rifle barrel. While the armories burned, she studied, bent low over notes, speech therapy books, pages open at sections on impairment, physiology. And while they milled and shouted on the commons, she helped a boy named Billy with his lisp, saying, "Hiss, Billy, like a snake. That's it. Shh. Tongue well up and back behind your teeth. Now buzz, Billy, like a bee. Feel the air vibrating in my windpipe as I breathe." As she walked in sunlight through the parking lot at noon, feeling the world a passing lovely place, a young guardsman who had his sights on her was going down on one knee as if he might propose. His declaration, unmistakable, articulate, flowered within her, passed through her neck, severed her trachea, taking her breath away. Now who will burn the midnight oil for Billy, ensure the perilous freedom of his speech? And who will see her skating at the Moonglow roller rink, the 8 small wooden wheels making their countless revolutions on the floor? The second poem is from Girl by the Water, published in 1994, and it's one of my most personal, intimate books. I'm going to read a poem called Subsidies, a brief glimpse at the struggles and costs of running a small farm in the prairies, whose owners can't compete with agribusiness and often have to work at 2 jobs, one of them in the city, to keep the family alive. It's called Subsidies. A boy with a mechanical arm addresses a group of kids on farm safety. A farmer tries to talk to the camera, still asking himself how it happened. Youngest son beside him one moment on the fender, slipping under the rear wheel of the tractor. 80% of rural deaths, the voice explains, are the result of farm accidents. Statistics are no consolation when you've seen the support block give way and the circular saw walk through the flesh of your son's neck. At night, as you drift towards sleep, you see the recognition in his startled eyes. Cock's crow is the engine's whine. A year later, you still can't look at her over breakfast, rise to the need in her flesh or yours. You toy with an egg, hard-boiled and intransigent on your plate, invite the coffee to burn your lips. You hear them debate subsidies in Parliament, the future of the family farm, and you know nothing you plant will ever again grow straight. Nothing you do will ever make it right. Thank you.